All right, this is the final presentation for ITGM 310, Animation for Games. So I'm going to start by looking at your demo here. So I'm going to go ahead and press play. Great. This is cool, guys. Got the tumble in there and that, great. It isn't backwards, that's cool. Ooh, is the AI like backing up? Cool. No one wants to say anything? You just want me to play?
I don't want to interrupt your flow.
No.
You can if you put inputs in while you're doing the attacks, you can like change the direction of the attacks a little bit.
Nice. Little, uh-oh. A little bit of bug there, but that's cool. Great, guys. Awesome. This is the last room. I'll just get up to the top. You can go in here and kill these guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So is this the boss fight room?
Yeah, for sure. If we wanted to put in a boss, we could absolutely put it here. Have like a big guy with a, you know,
one slightly bigger mannequin.
Hey, all right, you guys, give yourself a round of applause. That was awesome.
You did it.
So great. Oh my gosh, this is me with a huge smile on my face. All right, so now you guys are going to tell me all about how you did it, starting with Kendall. So 5 minutes apiece, and then everyone give Kendall the floor, and then feel free to ask questions at the end of it.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm gonna open up. Oh, my animations. Yeah.
Hey.
I was gonna originally start out with like showing it off, but I did basically all of the jumps, which, gonna be honest, proved a lot harder than I would have expected. So let me bring those up super fast. Let me share. Here it is. So this was the double jump that I had done for it. It unfortunately, I don't think it loops, sadly. So I just have to play it over and over again.
You can loop it with the little 3 dots on the side.
Can?
Yeah.
Oh, repeat.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. So this was the double jump that I had done, and it is supposed to go after the. I don't think you guys can see this one. Can you?
You can see it, yeah.
The first jump?
Yeah. The blocking, right?
Is it?
Yeah, we can see it, Kendall.
Oh, okay. So yeah, this was the first jump that I had done. And then finally I went and I had done also the roll too. I'll just share my screen for now. So challenges. Rolls are hard, deceptively so, in many, many ways. I had thought originally that rules would be like a really fun challenge, so I incorporated them in almost every single one of my animations because I thought, wow, we could have it look really, really cool and have a lot of fluid movement. It was not so easy. Some controls really did not like rolls as much as others, and it was really hard to manage both of like what controls didn't really like it, what controls did, and finding out kind of like the even ground between the two. And blocking also didn't really feel reliable after putting it into Spline, which happened for multiple reasons, I think. Part of it was due to just the character's model itself, because it has this like shoulder sleeve that isn't directly on the shoulder, but on the side So in certain cases, when I was trying to squash and stretch it, like the shoulder cloth would stretch in weird ways that maybe looked like the controls were twisted or not. And so I had to figure out if they were twisted or not, which was really confusing for me. So I had trouble with this for sure. So I ended up for the single jump, taking the jump out because I had figured that we had too many rolls in the end. I had incorporated it in so many of my animations that it was just too much. And then the second thing was like timing was really, really weird for it. Sometimes it was difficult to tell if the problem was on the Unreal side, the Maya side, or me side. And I don't know if that is necessarily from like lack of experience, and I'm gonna guess that it is, of just like not being used to the process of like having to go from like in Maya, in engine, back to Maya, back to engine, and just swapping between the two constantly and trying to figure out like what changes need to be made to adapt on the Maya side to go into Unreal, or what stuff can be done in Unreal that I don't have to worry about in Maya, but still have to keep in mind that it's gonna happen in the future. I definitely hope I get better at this, because I think that this process is incredibly important. And it's definitely not something that I'm used to. Usually we're used to dailies of like cinematics where it's just like, oh, we review like what happens in the scene, but it's so much more than that for gaming, where it's like you're analyzing how it feels with every other animation in the game and the movement that is implemented within it. Final challenge was like all of the different interwoven parts of the jump, and this is definitely on me. This was my fault in my process that I had done it, but because I had so many rolls and so many similar jumps, I figured like I'll just use some of the same pieces throughout the entire thing. You know, the landings for both jumps can be very, very similar or can be the same. So I'll just reference this one part of the animation, but it was unfinished. So then I would have to end up doing twice the work anyway for very different results regardless. So I kind of took a really long route in thinking like I'm doing it a smart and short way, but I really, really was not at all. So it was like trying to compensate for like having so many different parts of the animation, trying to make them similar. In the end, like doing so much work to make them so similar and just failing. Kind of gave it up on the end a little bit because I'm realizing how much it wasn't working. And then that was all the challenges that I had. But in conclusion, please have mercy. I showed up to class with 5 hours of sleep in the past 2 days on my birthday to present a final. Thank you.
All right. Good job. Can we look at your animation? Want to bring your animations up again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody have any comments or thoughts?
Happy
These ones.
birthday.
That
But
being said, I got to say that you really tackled this. I mean, that the hard part for the animator is to go in and like throw those elbows with Unreal and say, and then the thing about Unreal or just development in general, you'll hear developers being like, why is this happening? What's going on with this thing? Why isn't this working? And for animators, I think the variation of that is like, why doesn't it look right? Like, what is this going on? And so, yes, it's more experience, but it's also just like, you just have to get a better sense of it. And then that's just more time. But for where you're at right now and all that you learned, I think it's really great. So you did a great job.
I think the roll looks really, really good.
Yeah.
yeah,
Jump out of the
this
way.
was a little bit too much time on this one, but I still am not like proud of the timing. But that was also something that I think we may have sped up in the engine, so I wasn't sure if I should compensate for that.
In the engine, it looked perfect. So it's all
Yeah, like it feels natural.
Yeah, I sped up a couple of the animations to make them look better.
Yeah, so I was like trying to factor that in when like trying to animate as well, of like this is already sped up in the engine, so I had to make sure that like my timing is very similar or like going to look right still when we transfer it over. So yeah, but I really learned a lot, definitely, with like how everything goes through the process of going again back and forth of like reviewing the animations in engine and implementing them in engine, and then how differently they feel. Like you think something looks good in Maya and then you bring it into Unreal and it's like, oh man, this does not fit at all. Maybe in a completely different game this would have fit, but like this one,
Right.
So
and you have to play it, right? You realize that the experience is like, how do I move around more so than like I'm just watching a thing. So
yeah,
the fact that you're getting in there and you're actually tumbling around and Yeah, you know, like this idea of polish time, right? I would take this, and if you're prepping, I think you've got like the frameworks for, you get some overlap on the belting, and just, I
Yeah.
think it's a matter of devoting some curve time to this thing, and you could probably make it feel pretty good.
So I was
So-
hoping to do this week, but I didn't end
Yeah.
up getting around to it. So
Right, in your infinite time, but I
yeah.
think, so.
Yeah.
Okay, anything
Thank you.
else for Kendall? No? Yay!
I think you should get like a GIF.
Right.
You should get like a GIF of the roll in the engine and just like have that as like a nice little slice, because I think that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
This one was definitely one that I was like, I spent way too much time on the last night, just like trying to make sure that it looked really good, because it definitely felt pretty good in jet engine, and I wanted to try and like polish it up a little bit more.
Mhm.
So yeah, thank
Great.
you.
All right, so next up is Tailah.
Yeah.
You are next.
Let me open this up.
And then it never opened up. We never
Oh,
got
let's-
anywhere.
Let's
That's
hope
it.
that it works.
That's a
Guess we'll
pessimist,
go home
Dawn.
now.
Okay.
Ooh, nice.
All right. So this is my final presentation. And so my task for this project was, first off, prepping out the Konoichi model. We wanted to make sure that I set like skeleton and mesh sets, so that way when we want to bake on the joints onto our animation, that it works through when we export it to the Unreal Engine. And then just overall, just checking off the rig of the character FBX and making sure like everything is exported and implemented nicely. And then second would be my animation. So I had 2 tasks of doing idle and 3 light attacks for a combo. So a little animation breakdown into the idle, blocking stage, and then going back in for like a spline first pass. And then everything is kind of like still wonky, but still prepping out like how I wanted her movements to be. The third pass was more of fixing up her breathing, not making it more simple than extra. And then for the final game idle, just overall cleaning up what I've had for the third pass. And yeah, I think I pretty much liked her idle that much. And then just adding in like little belt movements and the little nitpicks, touches.
Yep.
Then the last attack would be the light attack combos. So first having the blocking out, and then going into that spline first pass. So of course she's sliding and she's rotating a lot. So going back into cleaning it up, we would have to cut it up in attacks. So that way, when we throw it in the engine, it would be easier for them to just break it up as they would put notifiers on it. So this will be attack A, attack B, and then into attack C. And then the in-game overall looks. I'm sure for the second attack, it had to be, I had to add a couple more frames on the ending. So
I think
that's
the
her
third attack especially looks really good.
Oh, thank you. And then a little problem solving. Let's go into perf force. The major problem was checking out files. Little disturbed that I was even given the option to do this, but this is what you get for letting me press buttons. So hard to check in back the files. That was a nightmare. This doesn't allow others to make their updates, which was a nightmare for them. And so a solution that we came to was making just a new folder, putting back what we had instead of having to like push the whole engine back. And this allowed everybody to just go back in and they could push and pull, and there was no checked out files and everything was pretty much good. So we worked from the second folder. And then for the second problem, this is a cause on my end for accidentally deleting my Maya file. So kind of losing my animation file. And it's a perma delete, so I can't really go back and get it from the trash can. So a solution would be, if you've already had an FBX that was exported, like a rough retarget of your rig onto the joints of the FBX. So you would take that, parent your controls back onto the corresponding joints, and then just bake out that animation. And there'll probably be a couple of things that were left, but you'll get back what you lost faster than having to reanimate the whole thing. And just to go into a little class experience, I love collaborating on this game with you all. This taught me a lot of stuff into knowing how to go into a workflow and structure of like the gaming pipeline. We've done so much deciding on like what our character should be, giving her personality, what her movement should look like, and then just finding all the references and look dev to just make the magic happen. It also taught me how to always think about the play style instead of just going in and just animating. This is great because it's a workflow that I have to go back in the engine, go back into Maya, and then just see how they both correlate. And then timing out in 30 FPS, making sure that everything's not like super fast. Because I'm working at, I usually work at 24. And then, yeah, just getting more comfortable with Unreal Engine. I definitely love using this program. This is a great practice into knowing what I can do and how I could just make a game, even if it's the simplest of thing. So thank you all for listening.
Yay.
And thank you for reminding me about the pre-force issue that was never solved.
Yes, our solution was just like,
What if we
it's gonna
just
take what we have and
duplicate
put it over
everything?
here.
It's a solution that was less destructive.
It works.
It is a solution. We don't know what the
Yeah.
problem was still. You know?
Nope.
Yeah.
Our solution was let's just duplicate it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
spoke to a company yesterday. I can't tell you which one it is. And I was like, hey, we're having some real problems with Perforce and blah, blah, blah. And the students can't do it. And they're like, yeah, we don't know what we're doing either. Like, I swear, it's like pervasive. So don't feel bad. Everybody's trying to figure this.
I suppose in a way that's comforting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, welcome to your first jobs where they're going to be like, oh, you know, Perforce, great.
I've worked in Perforce. I wouldn't say I know it.
Tailah, what was your sort of creative? Do you have any creative challenges, or I mean, I like seeing your iterations on stuff. What was the hardest part on the animation side outside of Perforce?
I think just making sure I put the stuff in the engine and just double check, because it might look fast in Maya or it might look slow, and then in the Unreal Engine, it's like the timing. It feels different. So just making sure that I use that workflow more often.
Yeah, basically doing a test before you give it to anybody. Basically, I did that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, testing first, and also you took on putting the character in the engine right off the bat. You tackled that up front, which was great, and that really, that doesn't get a lot of cred when you look at the final, but that's that you got us up and going. So great work. Okay, any last things for Tailah? What's next for you? Where are you going? Going to Disneyland?
I went to Disney and Universal already, so I'm trying to look for like somewhere else. But I'm just gonna go back home. Definitely still looking out for jobs. Gonna finish up my internship that I was already doing, and just keep rolling.
Great.
Keep rolling.
Great. Animator on the market. Awesome. Okay, so let's see. Hope, you are next.
Oh, all right, I suppose. Okay, let me share my screen. All right, can you see it okay?
Mhm.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I didn't do much on the technical side, but I did do animations, and you're going to see them. So these are the animations that I was responsible for from start to finish in the engine. Most recently implemented is the death animation, like, you know, just so that we would have a loss state, you know, something would play. I thought it like looked fine at the beginning, but then like there is the due to the player, the enemy AI would like circle you, so like the attack could come from the enemy direction, but this would always play from the player direction, so it wouldn't always look as seamless as I would like. I feel going forward, I would want to do a death animation that like maybe just slumps straight down, like, you know, would look best if like you got hit from any direction, which seems really obvious in hindsight, but here it is. Given more time, I would have presented something different for this particular state. And then I got a, you know, little animation for getting hit, because the enemies didn't have any weapons when I started working on this. I wanted to simulate, you know, just like a quick punch. Definitely could have touched it up a little bit more, but like I was just working super fast before the end to get these out into the engine so that they could, you know, I don't know, be serviceable for the final test. All right, the heavy attack. This got cut down. This, as you know, you all know this. This got cut down for time to just the jump and the final spin slash. It doesn't have any. It doesn't have any anticipation now, because it's like I ran into a problem where all of the double sword references that I could find were all like just based on quick slashes, and I'm like, all right, so what does a heavy attack look like? And the only thing I could think of was more slashes. So like short of just like pounding the swords into the ground, which is like, why would you do that? You're gonna break them. So like, I mean, I did feel like maybe the jump and the slash at the end, I feel like they're heavy enough, but maybe with a little more experience, I would know better what to do here. Definitely next time I actually want to have an anticipation, like charge up animation for the next time I tackle something like this. And then this is the walk, which was made specifically to be blended between the idle and the run, because we noticed in some versions of the side scroller that it like would look weird if it just went to the run right away. But it turned out, I guess, just based on testing, that that wouldn't be an issue for our iteration of the game. So this just got dummied out. It's here because I worked on it, and I think it looks kind of nice, so you all get to look at it too. But yeah, it was cut because it ultimately wasn't needed, and there was an issue with the swords in Unreal where they weren't being targeted to the hands properly. So I don't know, if only, but nah. And then there was a request from Marlee's run animation to have more arm bounce in engine. So like I was tasked with going in and like touching that up while everyone else worked on other stuff, which is like, yep, there it is. That's what it is. So other notes, having access to Tailah's idle state was a big help, like, because I wanted to make sure it blended, all of my animations blended back really, really well, like adjusting based on like the new foot placement as it was, like, you know, as the idle got updated. Like I feel like it was really nice to have that accessible, and I just, you know, perforce is bad for a lot of things, like, but you know, I liked having like, oh, I can just have someone else's files right away, and I don't necessarily need to ask every time. And then like there was a bug on Tuesday because the hit animation was implemented kind of it was implemented last minute, so like it caused that whole thing where like you couldn't like trigger attacks until you got hit, which is like, I don't know, I just gotta supply things sooner. Like I went so straight ahead on that I didn't really like I didn't send out the blocking like I should have. So that is why we do it, so that that stuff can get sorted out sooner before it's being presented in front of the professor for a last time. So that's everything I've learned and I did. This is a very fun and enjoyable experience. I don't get to animate in 30 FPS very often. So this is very fun and I learned a lot. And that's my presentation.
Yay.
You guys usually animated 24?
Yeah, 24.
Yeah.
That's standard
That is-
film feature length.
For film, yeah.
I'm glad that's like a challenge for all of us, knowing how, that it's not just me as well trying to time it.
Now do 60 for fun. Just do it.
Yes.
True. We should
All right,
roll.
all right, Glenn Keane.
Just remember,
Oh
15
god, yeah.
15 is the halfway point. So the way that I do 24 frames per second, I always remember 12 is a half point.
Yeah, but then I'm just like, if I put out a frame that only lasts 15 frames per second, is that only gonna play at half a second? Like, is that good? Like, what is that gonna look like when you stretch that out? Like, I don't know. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, and also the engine interpolates weird. You can get all kinds of popping. I mean, there's
Mhm.
yeah, Marlee's nodding her head. So yeah, frame rate, you just have to learn to deal with whatever frame rate is, but we're moving faster and faster, so it's not going to get less. You're going to have to figure out how to do, I don't think you're ever going to have to animate 60 frames per second. I'm not sure. So
Give it 10 years.
My 4K game, I need 60 FPS animation.
What do you mean that this character holds for 2 frames every like 1/60th of a second? What age are we living in?
It's like in films, like no holds. And then you go in game animation, it's like you can have holds. That's reasonable. Like what?
there's no
People are human. You can have holds. It's fine.
moving holes, right?
Mhm.
Cool. I think you did great. I think you're really great. And the fact that you learned how to coordinate and take other animations and build on it and things like that, that's all great experience. Again, the perforce woes, but I think you did great. Again, I think you can take all of those, even the walk cycle, and polish them up a little bit and make them real worthy for you.
Hey. Will do.
Great stuff. Happy to have you in class. Okay, who is next? Oh, Marlee, you are now up.
Now I'm on the chopping block. Yay.
Hey.
Everyone gets a turn.
So essentially, our game is Kanochi, which I found out later in life. Later on, it translates to female shinobi. I was like, oh, that's interesting. But as far as the game part of it, we took a lot of inspiration from Genshin Impact as far as like the personalized attacks, and we kind of determined what kind of attacks animations we wanted during our first meeting. And like we created a story to help the animators kind of get the personality aspect of it. So essentially the story that we kind of created was assassin invades an emperor temple and try to go around and complete their task of getting to the emperor or the boss, or essentially. And so my role was essentially I was the swing, so I communicated between the animators and the developers. So essentially, I would help import animations from the animators into the engine, and if I see any issues, I would communicate it with the animators and find out if it's an Unreal Engine problem or if it's an animation problem. And I also was doing a lot of creating montages with Pierce and plugging them into the engine and just seeing if everything was working properly. So some challenges I had was some of the light attacks was appearing too fast for the appropriate time for the combos. So like we had one that was 12 frames rather than the 30 frames. So the combo wouldn't execute successfully. So we had to go in there and fix that. And the only issue I had too was when we imported more animations, especially we had duplicates, I had to keep recreating the montages to get them in the engine. Another problem I had was I was in charge of the run, so I did the basic animation for that, but we needed more bounce between the hips and the arms. So I tasked that with Hope to do that, as I focused more on the engine and make sure all the animations were in there, all the montages were in. And then another problem I had that we never found a solution for was when I was trying to separate the rig between the swords and the rig itself, it would just break in the Unreal Engine. So due to time constraint, we decided to just have the character with the swords in the animation instead of having the character pick up the swords. So it'd just be faster and just easier that way. But overall, this was really fun to learn about the Unreal Engine, especially since I'm interested in going into the game animation industry, and learning that, 30 frames per second is the average was interesting to try to animate to that and put in Unreal Engine and adjusting the time in the engine or adjusting the time in Maya and finding out how to make it look as good as it should be. But it was just, overall, it was just fun creating this game, and I learned so much about Unreal.
Hey, good stuff. Yeah, it's kind of like Tailah being the importing of the rig. You had like that almost thankless job where you don't get to animate, you don't get to develop, you just kind of have to like do a little bit of everything that needs to get done to get the characters to work. It's just sort of that weird, that swing. I love that term. But I think you did a great job. You did a really good job. Did do you like being there, or do you want to be in the animation side for sure? Right?
I think I did a little bit of both. So I got to do the basic animation run and got that imported and figure out how to get that to work. Yeah. So I started off doing a little bit of mix of everything, and I kind of liked doing that because like I could figure out as an animator how to animate for games, but also as a somewhat of a developer how to get it to work.
Did you enjoy the like state machine stuff?
Yeah. I enjoyed the state machine from the first project, so getting that to figure out how to get that to work more efficiently was really interesting.
Yeah.
Smaller studio style, right? Mm-hmm. Smaller team, smaller animation team. You like to do more.
Cool. I think with those errors, reading those errors now, it's probably spitting out those errors because it's probably referencing the animations already in the engine, right? And they're like, oh my god, my new rig doesn't have the bones, my sword bones. Where are my sword bones?
Yeah, it was just interesting because every time I tried so many different ways to get it in there, and sometimes it would work and sometimes it'd be just like broken, and I'm like, I don't know.
We'd probably have to go back and like re-export all the animations first and like because
this wasn't even on our Kenochi file.
It was on your person.
This was on a whole different project, so I was like, what is going on?
Dang.
This is the Kyle Figgins rig, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Did you delete it in the Maya side, or you just imported everything? Like, because I blow everything away except for the rig itself, and then just make something completely different for weaponry. Did you do something?
That's what I tried to do, and it did not work. I don't know if it's the way I was exporting it was not working, or it would just like not figure out what's going on.
I don't know much about
sockets. Did you use sockets on the hands?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kept those on there.
All right, I'll go in and take a look. Really interesting though. Anybody anything else for Marlee?
You did a great job being the swing.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Like it really felt like you were like a producer, kind of like a driving management force.
Yeah, you really understood both sides, which was awesome.
Yeah, it's like
it's really helpful.
Gotta get this to Marlee.
Really helpful when it comes
to
just
being like, we have a question. We have a question, and you're just like, I don't know. That like never happens, basically.
Yeah, just like super thumbs up.
Thank you.
Alrighty, great work, Marlee. Okay, Dom, you are now up.
Okay, perfect. Here we go.
Wii Sports?
Perfect.
I was waiting. I've been waiting to use it. So here we go.
It's a quarter-long setup for that joke.
It's always
quarter
worth
long.
it, though.
It's like every week. Where have you been?
But now I have an actual reason to use it. It was the start of my
life now.
presentation, right?
It's
All
more.
right.
It's so much more funnier when Hope's like, "Wii Sports" every time.
It's so good. Anyway,
I
So-
destroyed my Wii console because of you.
I'm so sorry. Okay, now I have to remember how to. There you go. There you go. So we had stuff planned, right? We had our stonks, and our stonks were a roaming feature, some waypoints, combat, and tracking. And only one of our stonks crashed, and that was that we couldn't get waypoints, which it wasn't really a big loss, right? So what we did get though was we got some roaming, some tracking, combat, and a sequence to actually control all of that. So that's all good. But how that went down was that it just went okay. Because there's a couple of bugs and all of that is just because Unreal doesn't like to make things work so great, and that the values that I were using were based off of a version that was kind of far away ago. So it's like 300 units is like a little bit out of arm's reach, and we have to use 700 units instead. So things like that were really the only kind of problem that I had inside the project. So that was all good. So how a whole bunch of shit worked was that in the AI controller, we had all this stuff, and all this means is that we look at the tree, we say use this one, and then here are some variables we set. And then underneath it is, these are commands that we send to whatever we have in control. And I was like, bam, this stuff is easy peasy, no problem. Then we got to the blackboard, which is just as simple in how it looks, but it's not simple in how it's set up. And I won't go into the details of that because there's just so much and it doesn't need to. But essentially all we said was, how far is player? Is player this distance? Then we do the stuff on the left, which is we go wherever, we move there, and then we wait. And if the player is too close, then we go after the player and we try to kill them. We try to make them dead until they leave this distance. And everything on the bottom left is our variables that we used for that. That stuff wasn't too hard, it just was tedious. And then we get to the battle director, the prize of all of this, which is the most painful thing to look at in all of my life. And it took up too much time, right? So we have this simple thing that says, hey, we add this stuff to the AI, and then it goes, oh, well, what does it look like? And then we see the bottom line, you go, oh, that's what it looks like. And you cry a little bit. But essentially all it is saying, we give you a value, and we give you whatever list you are in the number. And then it just does that. It slaps that number in the list with the value and goes, that's what you are. You get good. Then we go down from the actual base, and it goes, all right, so now what do? Well, between 2 to 5 seconds, we trigger the attack thing that we saw on the controller, which is exactly what it is, attacking. And then it says, all right, so what do we do after that? And it goes, we look at the score. We make a new score. We get the highest from the list. We make them do the attack, and then we do it again until no one exists. And we go, that's okay. And then it says, all right, but what does the get the score thing look like? Well, we look at their position. And to look at their position, we go, all of that junk, which is, where is the player and are they looking at us? And if they are looking at us, we give them a better number. And then we send that to the AI and we go, oh, okay, cool. And then it goes, okay, so where's the highest number? And you go, well, you see the highest number is all this jabble juggle stuff that I don't like anymore. But essentially all it is where are they in the list and what is their value? Highest value goes first. Oh, hey, dude, Pog. So what did I learn? Is that AI hates listening to anything. Unreal hates updating movement no matter what you do. Creating an order sequence for other structures is a little painful. That I have to animate the attacks, and I hate animating. And that AI is okay to work with, except when it comes to the animating part. So what next? Sad face. My bad. Happy face. I take a break. I relax. I play some Minecraft. I go on vacation. I come back for the summer for classes. Sad face. But I learn more Unreal so I can actually work better with it in general. And then I test multiple AI blackboards running off of a controller to test my might. And then unrelated note is that I go watch all the Mortal Kombat movies from the beginning to the end. Thank you.
Scorpion rules.
Yes, he does.
Okay, who's got some notes for Dom? Everyone completely understood that, right?
I understood. I understood some words being said, like
Yep.
numbers and.
Sounds about right.
I understand this pain of the Blackboard stuff. Basically, it makes sense for the most part when you're doing it, but it's very tedious. Of basically, you keep creating new tasks, so you keep opening up this little blueprint template. You keep making a new one. You keep renaming the new one. Like, okay, this one finds the player. Then you plug that into like that little tree he was showing. And then you keep going and it's like, okay, I wanted to move to the player. Thankfully, that's built into it. So you can just do that. And then you keep doing that for each little thing you want. But once you've made, 10 of those little tasks, getting them to like work together. And especially if you need to edit stuff, you forget where anything is and it sucks. Yeah. And it's like.
So let's first talk about the battle director. Let's go back into that like super high level understanding. So how do you rank the AI? What are the parameters that rank? Because you're ranking you enter a room and there's 3 bad guys, right? 3 AIs. So you created a battle director that, if we understand it correctly, ranks those 3 bad guys according to what?
It ranks them based on how far away from the player they are, and the shorter distance they are, the higher they are. But it also looks at if you are matching, in the direction that they are, in which case it gives them a higher value as well.
How did you choose to use those parameters?
Simply because it worked better with the camera, because then it could use line tracing. So if the enemy can see you, it determines that that enemy will have one of the higher chances of seeing you by default. Right. So both as a gameplay and as a mechanic, it works a little bit better. And then it's easier to just say, are you closer to them, than be higher.
Okay, so maybe I'll share while we're doing this so you can help describe it. So right now that 4.65 is the ranking but since he's the only guy here, he's the most important thing, right? So now he's gone into attack mode. Am I right? Yeah, I'm starting to attack him. So what causes him to start coming after the player?
So it has a service called Get Distance on the backboard, and that service, all it does is say it says a function to determine how far away you are. So you are now within I think it is within 700 units, allows them to target you and start moving towards you. And then once it's within, I believe it's either 300 or 400, because that's one of the ones that I had to fine tune a little bit. It determines if it can attack you, and if it can attack you, it'll try to attack you if it thinks you're still within range. So if it stops to swing at the end of its cycle, it'll still say that you were within distance at that point in time, and that's why it tried to hit. But because they have a lower acceleration, even when it says that you are within range, you might have already left it, just because the actual attack range is unknown to me.
Right. Okay, so in broad strokes, he's doing a patrolling system. We come in, we run a loop to determine his rank. His rank is at a certain point based on him looking at you in the distance, and then he begins attacking to you. So you run an attack pattern, and then after he swings, he reevaluates.
Yep, and then that the delay between attacks is anywhere between 2 to 5 seconds.
Great. Yeah, so I mean, as on the note to what Pierce was talking about the trees. We still don't know if that's the best way to do it. Like I downloaded this NPC pack that created routine systems. So I can create little routines. So if like I'm a blacksmith or something, I go into my blacksmith shop, I bang for a little while, and then I go over here and I do something else. It kind of runs through these routines, and they're all like just sequential. It's not even using the tree that you guys are using. It's all blueprint based. AI move to run this, play sequence this. So there's lots of ways to do this, and I know it seems super complicated, but really is a matter of like finding the nice mechanism to use it, Yep. Super great. Do you have fun?
I did have fun. It hurt me a little bit, but I did have fun messing with them.
I just gotta hold your feet to the fire, man. Like I think you have a gift for AI, so you should and there's going to be need for it, so you should follow through with that.
I liked it a lot. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of stuff is like so it used to be that 300 units was was like at least like 6 bodies standing up away from the player. 300 units now is about as tall as the player is.
Yeah.
And I was like, when did this change and who made it change and why?
Hmm.
So all of my initial values were completely wrong. So when we were testing it initially, that's why they just stood still and didn't do anything.
And all the tutorials for are all over the place in terms of versions. So it's
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, no one's doing it.
Yeah, I give you props because I was trying to do the AI companion for the side platformer, and I was like, this is not happening.
Yeah.
Easiest thing would just be to slap a follow player, and that's it. Just don't let them do anything else besides follow the player at such a distance, and you'll be totally fine.
It's just a ghost that follows the player.
You know, I have no idea what I'm doing. I am fumbling around on this stuff as much as you guys are. You see me downloading plugins and doing this kind of stuff. But the easiest way that I look at it is to stop trying to think about it as like there's a brain in that head. Try to think about it from like it's a thing in a mathematical area. Like there's a room and there's distance and there's ranges and there's things and you try to move it based on that. Don't ever, because it's easy to get stuck in how do I make it a decision? And it's not making decisions. It's just following like room stuff. So, you know, when you do searching for like the Ryan Laley stuff, I haven't watched that yet, but you know, when you watch AI tutorials, they're always about like, how do I pathfind or how do I do range or how do I do this kind of stuff? So if anyone finds that kind of stuff, send it to me because I am very interested in.
I know Ryan Laley has a Melee AI tutorial that I was following, and
really?
most of his stuff made sense to me, and that's what a heavily amount of it is. And then there are a couple of things that I've modified, mostly in the behavior tree, simply because that's the part that would actually need the adjusting. But I can throw the link to the AI.
Yeah,
or
put it in the Discord.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
It's an
and then also-
8-part series with, on average, 16-minute videos.
So the and then the other one that if anybody is interested in going down this route, there is something called the NPC manager. I've only barely ducked into it. I'll put this into the Discord chat as well.
Those are cool. It's like big bounding boxes for like a different like you can partition NPCs with like these big little green boxes. It's cool.
I put it in the check this out.
And it's all, I wonder if they show some interface stuff, but it's actually not too bad. They give you out of the box samples for building a whole bunch of things. There's no interface, but on the side, you know, in Unreal, there's little things like, oh, you can make them do this first and then do that and do that, and you can plug in animations. And then the blueprinting is more along the stuff that we've already been doing. So right now I haven't spent enough time with it, but right now this is how I'm going to get going to see if I can figure out how to get better with.
This looks like it would be really fun to use.
Yeah, like build a town, just start animating a whole bunch of characters and having them walk around and like that. That's what I want to do. So put a VR helmet in. Right? Who needs real people? All right, Pierce, you're finishing us up.
Alrighty. Where's the button? There it is. All right. So what I did for our project. Oh, this is not what I wanted. What is this? Where's the button? Is that it? There we go.
Yeah.
So what I did on our project, the main thing I did was, I'm sure you've seen the stuff, is kind of our main little combo system here.
The pain.
What's that?
The pain.
The pain. I mean, it's fairly straightforward. It's basically all centered around this little node in the middle. Basically, what you're doing is you're getting it to go up this little tree from 0 to 2, so 3 numbers, right? And when you go up the tree, the first thing it does is it sets the next number. So the next time you put the input in, it goes to the next one, right? So every time you left click, it goes up by 1, basically. And then once you get to the last one, it resets it back to, 0, basically. And then of course, after that, then we do a bunch of functions, but that's the short of it. So one of the main things I wanted like some reusable functions, because that's something that I'm trying to get better at and trying to do more, is get stuff that's, dynamic and reusable, that isn't just, doing basically this over and over, you know, with like bespoke pieces, it's instead little reusable things. So some of those little functions are like, you know, take damage, you feed in the damage, and basically you make sure it's between a value, and then you make it into a percentage, you know, for our health bar, right? Same thing with like stamina. You basically get stamina, make sure it can't go under 0, and then I have this little stagger regen function, so we're basically your stamina doesn't instantly regenerate while you know, are spending it, right? So once the animation is done, then you can start regenerating the stamina, but before then you don't. Some of the other stuff is montage priority, right? So there are 2, oh, I didn't take screenshots of them. I did, but I guess I didn't put them in, but that's fine because I can do it here. Okay, basically there's 2 different ones. This one is a high priority montage that basically all it's doing is it's taking the animation that's playing and saying it can't be canceled out of, right? And the next one just doesn't have anything fed into it, where basically any montage can cancel out of it, right? And that basically helps you, and you can, you know, get more levels in there if you want, but basically those 2 levels let you have animations that lock you in and animations that don't. So that was cool to learn how to do. And there are some bug fixes. For example, this part right here where it says mesh to animations to montage and playing is basically I co-opted that from those from these tri-animation montage and montage priority stuff in order to basically help bug fix like us getting stuck sometimes. We would get stuck basically if we weren't getting a certain animation notifier to play to fire off this function here, right? If you were in between the gap and you got hit basically before either of these 2 little functions played in the animation, then it would get stuck right here. It would get stuck on, you know, this little Boolean saying, well, you're saving the light attack and you're light attacking. So what's going on? Why haven't, you know, you haven't set those off, you can't attack again, right? So basically what I did there was basically if there was no montage playing and you put an input in, it fixes the problem basically and fires off that event. So if, you know, basically it's still a bit of a delay, but and I could probably put this on like an event tick or something like that, right? And so it's all, or a timer, so it's always checking, but basically this helps fix one of those problems. Another thing is how I used to cancel the animations was at the end of our damage event, right? After we do the animations here, and then the little hit scan and stuff, right? I would put this little delay in here before resetting the combo. And this is cool because it lets you obviously cancel out of the combos. This is what this is. Basically, you take the play rate of these animations, and then after 60% of them have been done, then you could cancel out because the combo would be reset and you're not, you know, playing them. Technically, the animation data doesn't matter anymore. The only problem with that is it was only getting fired off after, you know, you were only if you were hitting something basically. So there's some problems there. So I decided to put the that cancel into the montage instead. So basically when it gets to that certain point, it fires it off. Another thing I probably could have done is like get a sequencer going and probably put this first, this little reset node here first, and then fire off the spears. But I think like another solution, I'm like thinking of solutions, you know, as we go. And one last thing, OneDrive sucks. OneDrive is the worst. I didn't know it was redirecting a lot of my default Unreal path to a OneDrive version of like your user folders, I guess, like your desktop and your documents, right? Is basically redirecting them all instead of here. Basically, it was redirecting them to a OneDrive folder. So a lot of my projects were in there, and that's what was happening earlier in the quarter when I was getting GitHub LFS errors, right? For my other class. It was just, it was awful. It was because it does two things that Unreal doesn't like. One, it increases your file name length, and Unreal hates if your file path is too long. If it's over like 50 characters, it just says nope, can't do it. Sorry, buddy. So yeah, OneDrive sucks.
All right. With authority.
Yeah, I hate using OneDrive. Like sometimes some of my documents get saved there and I can't get access to it. I'm like, no.
I mean, the best way to fix it is just to log out of OneDrive and then just go
turn
back
it off.
in. And they're always just like, do you want to log in? And I'm like, no. Go
So
away.
the problem I have of OneDrive right this second is if I fire it up, it's trying to sync my folders, right? And it won't let me unsync folders, like tell it to stop tracking like my desktop, for example, until it's synced. So now there's like 50 gigabytes of data it wants to sync, and OneDrive uploads data at about a speed of like 0.01 megabytes per second, because for some reason they don't know how to take your upload speed, I guess. I have no clue. I'm not a backend developer, but it's just a mess. I'll have to leave it on for like a week and just let it do its thing and then nuke it after that.
So anybody else have anything for Pierce? Any questions?
I'll never be able to do the work that you do. So
Yeah, like
Thank
put in
you.
so much stuff.
Yeah.
It was so well organized.
I don't
and I was just
agree.
like,
I
oh,
think-
thank God, everything's labeled.
I think you got it. If you guys want to do it, I think you can learn. Like, I believe.
Basically,
Easy.
it's like following tutorials, but taking the tutorials apart and kind of learning it that way.
Well, you have to know the rules before you can break them.
That is
So
true.
you need to know what to look for. That's
Yeah.
that's my point, is that yes, you can use tutorials, but you also need to evaluate, like this one's garbage. This one's good. This one, you have to have a critical eye on what you're looking for and know how to search them. And then you start collecting them. And then you also ask your friends. We all been using the Ryan Laley ones. That's because it's been validated by 3 or 4 people. I haven't done it yet, but that's how you validate tutorials. Pierce, I want to ask you about montage preference. What is it called? Priority, montage priority.
Yeah.
That's an interesting design pattern. Where did you get that, and how are you? Because you built a lot of your timing based off of that, right?
Not initially. Let me grab my documentation here. I believe it's in here. Yeah. Okay. So basically, this guy talks about in his next one.
This is Jeff or whatever his name is.
I don't
Unreal
know.
RPG Mastery. Yeah.
So basically, he's talking about, in games like Sekiro and stuff like that, you
Right.
Can cancel out certain parts of the animation, right? So then we get this like priority list here, basically, right, where it's saying, what you need here. Now the problem with his stuff is that, for our purposes anyway, is that he has a lot of checks that I think are kind of like superfluous. That's the word.
Based on multiplayer. Or-
He has like those server has authority side stuff for one thing, and for another, like for example here, this is good practice. Basically, is like, hey, are you falling?
Mhm.
If you're falling, then in the falling state, then you can't dodge in midair unless you want to, right? Like what you could do here is off this true branch, you could put like a whole like midair dash up here. You know what I mean? If you put the dodge input in, but he also has like a lot of checks for if there are, for example, like montages that are. He has like a third tertiary system basically that I don't remember off the top of my head, but point is that it's like adapting that was kind of fun. I guess is my point. I don't know.
So, but the montage priority, that's what he does. He does a check to see what priority this montage is, and then or where it's playing. Is that sort of the
Yeah, basically you're just modifying your Anim montage
right?
node here, right? With just a check to see if anything for example, is the thing already playing, right?
Yep.
Is the high priority montage you fed in already playing?
Yep.
And then you reconstruct on this node, you reconstruct all like the variables it would have anyway here, right? And then you pass out the play rate, obviously. But yeah.
So that guy who I think has a really strong, approachable combat system, right? So RPG Mastery, I think this is the guy who has the tutorial too, right?
This is the guy. No, that's a separate guy. This
is it a
is the
separate
guy
guy?
that made this combat system pack. That's like.
Oh, he made the
100
combat
gigabytes.
system pack.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So this is another one that should be, you know, downloaded and unpacked just so you can understand the structures of it. It looks great. That stuff is awesome. Okay, who else has got anything for Pierce? No?
How is your brain not dead, Pierce? How did you actually just get through the term with code like this?
Well, because it's fun.
That's fair. I'll give you that one. That's fair.
Yeah. I mean,
When
it's a
are you-
matter of aligning your passion, right? Finding that.
Yeah.
I think I got lucky because this is what I wanted to be doing, like in this time frame anyway, even if I wasn't in class, you know. So it kind of just worked out, to be honest,
That's fair.
for projects.
Well, I had a load of fun. You guys, I came into this class like so bitter from my last outing, and I was like, I got this again. But you guys, every one of you brought something unique in and was really great. You pushed me. I learned a lot. I also learned a lot about how to teach this. And I'm very excited to keep the door open and continue to work with every single one of you. So let's pause the recording now.